Hey everybody, I am joined by Jan Van Horn, who is a seasoned motion designer and freelance art director. She has years of experience making so many different kinds of videos and so forth, animations, including work with Folgers and other large clients as well. She currently is the creative director, editor, and host for the Monday Meeting podcast, all being a mentor and public speaker for individuals in the motion design space. She also has a cooking channel called I Make Ugly Pancakes, where she shares some of her favorite recipes that I've also had a chance to make one of my own. I can go ahead and quality check it there. It is fantastic. So make sure to go check that out. Jan, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks for having me, Grant. This is always really fun when I get invited to stuff. So it makes me feel included.
That's awesome. So Jan, I had a chance to check out your website, really kind of do a bit of a deep dive into it. And it's just like this plethora of experience. But I have to ask, where did it all start?
Oh, that's a story. I'm going to try to nutshell it. It all started. I've been taking art classes since I was in elementary school, like additional outside of school. And I just always had a love for art. So I always kind of knew I'd go to art school. So I did. I ended up going to Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design in Lakewood, Colorado, located right behind Casa Bonita. So every day smelled like sopapillas in the the parking lot. From there, I got my degree in 3D animation. But after 4 years fighting with Maya, I decided I did not like 3D animation. And then I ended up moving to LA, and I was working in LA as I made my way up to assistant editor for a couple of different reality TV shows, but also didn't really love that whole thing. It was very, very toxic. It was very sexist. It was also California, so smog and traffic, and I didn't love it. So I had kind of moved into different positions. I was a research project management person for a stock footage company. That was kind of fun. I did VFX coordinating for another company. That was fun. I randomly got my license to sell life insurance. I did that for 6 months. That was not fun. I went into massive debt because of that. So I ended up working 3 retail jobs at once, while also networking with all of my assistant editor friends and editor friends. And I got a call from one of them saying, like, hey, we need someone who knows Photoshop and After Effects for this cute little show for Up Rocks. It was kind of like a weekend update, but it was called The Desk for like fun news, jokes and stuff. And they needed someone to be in the writer's room photo manipulating joke photos for their broadcast, like an hour before they would shoot. So I would drive 2 hours to Venice, work for 4 hours, and drive 2 hours back. I was in my car as long as I was working every day.
Oh, wow.
So after a while, I realized, you know what? I can actually do this job remotely. This was back in about 2015. I was also turning 30, and I realized, hey, I don't need to be here. Why did I move to California? I can't even really be in direct sunlight. My skin is very pale, and with my eyes, I really shouldn't be in the sun. And so I started looking around for other places to move. Ended up moving up to Portland, Oregon, because they agreed I could do the same thing on the show just remotely. As soon as I get to Portland, Oregon, the show is canceled. My MacBook Pro dies. My Wacom tablet dies. I freak out. It was the holidays, so of course no one was hiring anyway. So I went to a holiday party with my friend who I went to art school with. He was an illustrator. And at that party, he said, hey, don't worry about it. Like, you're an animator, right? I'm like, well, like a million years ago. He's like, well, I need an After Effects animator. I'm an illustrator for explainer videos, and we're looking for animators. So I'm like, okay, I can get on YouTube and get a refresher. So I did. And that was since 2015. I am still working for that company, freelance. And wow. Because of that company, I have animated over, probably at this point, well over 200 explainer videos. I lost count around 150 a couple years ago. So that's sort of like my claim to fame in the industry. And from there, I'm just meeting new people and going to different conferences. And I joined School of Motion during COVID because I took a class and I wanted to become a TA. So I'm a TA with them and started hanging out with them. I am friends with the Maxon crowd because of the NAB and SIGGRAPH and Camp MoGraph. And because of Camp MoGraph, I am now the creative director for the Monday Meeting podcast because that's connected. And it's just kind of crazy how it really built up. And so that's kind of how I found myself here. For the most part, I've been freelance for the last, for almost like 12 years now. I mean, I've always been kind of freelance in some capacity. I did do a full-time job for a year and a half in advertising in 2022. But it ended up not working out, but I did learn a lot of cool stuff. And now I kind of like doing advertising, which brought me into the food space of it all because I love to cook. And I've been cooking every day since, or not every day, but pretty much every week at least since college. So it's about almost 20 years now. And I realized, hey, I love motion design. Hey, I love cooking. Why don't I work on more projects that involve that? So so that's kind of my nutshell of kind of how I got to where I am today. And there's a lot of other stuff, but that's the main.
I think it's all a very interesting story. I think immediate takeaway anybody watching this is going to immediately have is no matter what, in the face of adversity, always have a positive attitude. Because I do think like you're just bringing a positive attitude. I mean, like just all those trials and tribulations and so forth. And you're absolutely right about reality shows. Just hearing stories about how like they always try to keep people, on alcohol the whole time to get the worst out of them, things like that. Overall, I mean, it's just very, it's depressing, to be honest. So I'm glad he got out of that.
Me too. Although I did find my voice a little bit during that time because I've also noticed that any space that I'm in, if there's sort of an underrepresentation of women, I jump in. I don't always want to be a leader, but if I see a lack of and things aren't getting done, I will just jump in and start leading. And when I was working in reality TV, I had a boss that would have all of these hangouts after work that were really discouraging to women. They would have them at strip clubs. They would have movie nights where you'd have to do a shot of whiskey to get through the door and like stuff like that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to that strip club. I'm going to take everyone else's shot who doesn't want to take it. I will do it. Like I would do stuff like that because I'm like, I'm sick of one, not seeing more women in spaces, but also I don't want to be the only one. So I want to try to like make space where I can. And at least with motion design, I'm seeing a huge shift. I'm seeing a lot of women that are joining motion design, which is really exciting. A lot of female groups like Panimation and Mothers of Mograph. And it's been really cool to see that growth just in the last couple of years. Really just in the last 2 years. It's been awesome.
When I first started in motion graphics, it felt like it was white guys with beards. Like that was a very domineering aspect of it. And it was like now kind of seeing like so many different other individuals getting involved that don't just fit within that demographic. It's like, great, cool. Because, adding so much additional diversity provides so many additional insights. And then, that's more growth, that's more opportunities, more representation, things like that. So yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're doing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I think I definitely look up to, I met actually in person finally, Haley Aikens at Camp Mograph because she came out. But I feel like during the pandemic, she was on Clubhouse a lot and she was, I don't know, the stuff that she would say, I'm like, oh, I could do it too. Like she was definitely my inspiration for women in the industry, but there's definitely been a lot of others that have popped up, which has been really cool.
In one of your videos for I Make Ugly Pancakes, you showcase your hydroponics lab.
Oh yeah.
And that's cool. Like that's like, I'm just like, someone has a hydroponics lab in their living room. That's awesome. Because I feel like I see like people's back of their houses and like, they'll have like ability just for it. And
I showcase it.
Yeah, it's like a spec piece.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So like, how did you get to the point where you're like, hey, I'm going to do a hydroponics lab in my living room?
I've been doing hydroponics really. I didn't get the big tower until recently, but I've always had some sort of aero garden for last 10 years. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with science fairs. I always had something going on in a science fair. And so I definitely kind of have that science side of me. I have ADHD undiagnosed, so I am constantly in something, I'm researching something. And so I love art and science, and I feel like there's a lot of science with food too. So I started gardening, mostly outdoor stuff for a while there. But then, when I moved to Portland and now I'm back in Colorado, it didn't make sense to have outdoor stuff. Like you can really only keep stuff alive for summer. It just gets too cold. So I did a year of research of which tower I wanted to get. There's like 3 or 4 big names, and I picked the one that I could hack. And because I watched all these YouTube videos on, okay, well, like I want the main system, but how can I make it as easy as possible? So I have my hydroponic has a smart meter that tells me the EC and the pH. I have a aquarium tank that prevents algae bloom. I have a wave machine to keep all of the chemicals mixed, and then I have all the chemicals, and everything is on timers, and the lights are on timers. The whole system's on a timer, and it's been great. I'm actually in the middle of a triage situation the last 2 days. When it gets warm, it is close to my heater. So if the water and the chemicals start heating up, the EC jumps up, and then I have to keep topping it off with cold water. Well, that was working until 2 days ago, when all of a sudden the EC jumped up from like, it's only supposed to be like 1.5 to 2. It jumped up to 7, and I was like, oh God. And so most of my plants got root burn because of it. So I have a second pump with buckets. So I was pumping out 10 gallons of water this morning and putting new water and new chemicals in, and it's still not happy. And I think I have to recalibrate it. So that's what I'm going to be doing either later today or tomorrow. Because I'm hoping it's just that, because I have a whole thing of seeds right now in nursery that I want to move to that tower soon. But it's been really great, because I don't know how much money I've wasted buying those big clamshells of lettuce, and so I just started growing my own lettuce, and it's been helping me seeing the lettuce like, oh, I need to make a salad. That's been actually really helpful with my health journey. And then I do a lot of like herbs and stuff like that. I've done a little bit of vegetables, mostly like jalapenos, but I need special lights to do like tomatoes and things, so that might be something next year. I'm in an apartment, and my maintenance team already said, like, if you get a light, let us know. We'll install it on your ceiling. I'm like, oh, sweet. Because like, wow. In Colorado, everybody grows something out here, it seems like. So, yeah. So that's, I really don't want to recalibrate that thing, because that means I gotta like take everything out, and it's a big process. But yeah, it's been awesome. It's definitely my indoor jungle of stuff. Except for right now with all the plants out, it's like white with lights hitting it, so it's very bright in my living room. So hopefully I can get stuff growing again.
For the tomatoes, is it like it's like a heat bulb or something that you have to get specifically for that?
The grow light has to have the red and blue bulbs in it. So my lights they don't have the colors on them. The Aero Gardens have that type of setup, because you can set whether you want herbs, lettuce, or vegetables, and then it'll change the lights. But for this, what do I have? I have the garden iHarvest. Yeah, it doesn't have that specific light, but apparently it's pretty easy, because I mean, weed is legal in Colorado, so a lot of people are always like trying their hand at it. So everyone always has a grow light for pretty cheap on like Facebook Marketplace. So that's probably where I'm gonna find an inexpensive one and try that, because I did grow tomatoes for like 6 months, but no tomato. It was the tomato plants, and I have a picture. It's taken over my entire living room, like an Audrey 2 situation. But I was so annoyed, because I was like constantly trimming and doing everything right. But when my maintenance came in, they're just like, oh, that's why you don't have that special light. You need that for flowering for vegetables. So good to know. I feel like I learn something new every day with the hydroponics.
I would imagine so. Yeah, it sounds super complicated. The bright side is you don't have to worry about listeria scares, because you're just growing your own.
Growing my own. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I've been watching a lot of. I get kind of sucked into YouTube videos of not necessarily doomsday preppers, but like people that preserve their own stuff. Like I have a dehydrator, and I make my own like garlic powder, and I do garnishes for cocktails, and so I'm trying canning soon, which would be interesting. I might actually make my own kombucha. I definitely have a sourdough starter in my fridge. So there's so many different adventures you can kind of go on with food. And yeah, with the prices going up, I also have a second freezer out on my balcony. So I'm big on bulk shopping. So there's always a better, faster, stronger way to do something. And I'm always fascinated on what that is and how I can perfect my routine, if that makes sense. Kind of in all aspects, I do that. Now I think about it.
I gotta ask that. I mean, because I know right now you're in an apartment, I believe, right? You're in an apartment. it sounds like you're just ready to buy an acre and live off the land with how much like self-sufficiency you have here.
I always say that I'd be a fantastic homesteader if I liked being outdoors, but I do not. Like, between with the sun issues, bugs find me. I don't understand. I can be anywhere and I will get like 8 mosquito bites. So I don't know. I just hear so many horror stories of people who own their own property, and I don't know. I feel like renting still makes sense. And I'm in Loveland, which is great because it's affordable and I can have a 2-bedroom by myself. And I'm only like a 40-minute to an hour drive from like Denver or Boulder. And so it's nice. I like being here. I don't know. And I love this apartment so much because like as soon as I got here, the first thing I did was do this background. Like I wanted to have something that was like cool because I had a white wall for so long. And when I finally got my office space, I'm like, yes, I can actually like, flex my design muscles a little bit. And I don't know. When I put roots down, I nest for a while, so I could see myself being here for a couple more years before I try anything. But you never know. I mean, if I start making like a crazy amount of money, yeah, probably I'll get some cool place. With what I want to do is I want to get a little house with a backyard where I can build a smart greenhouse. I have a lot of friends that know like the computer side of it and the physics and and how to do with the apps in the Raspberry or Pi, or I don't even know what that stuff is, but like I have friends that could figure it out for me, which is cool. So I can see myself doing the smart greenhouse route. For those of us who were obsessed with that Practical Magic movie growing up, they had a greenhouse that was literally attached to their kitchen, and that was always my dream to have that space so close. So that's why I do like that. I have my herbs and my lettuce that's like right off my open concept kitchen because it's convenient. It's right there.
That's super cool. That'd be great. Just to be like, hey, just going to go out to the greenhouse attached to the kitchen, grab someone, come back in. There we go. Yeah. You mentioned that when you were in, you had a chance to set up your own office space and you kind of designed your background and everything as well. So all the illustrations behind you, are those your illustrations?
Yeah. Except for this one. That's a print from my friend, Nick. Yeah. And then also Gus from EJ Has and Frauds and Pato as well. Like I try to grab stuff from friends who like making their own stuff. But yeah, all of the paintings are mine.
Very cool. In your Folgers video that you did, that's on your portfolio. Oh, yeah. Did you also, so you did the illustration for that, or?
No, that was my friend, Nick Fauble, who's in Portland. Most of my explainer videos, he actually designed. He was my friend that was at the party that said we need an animator. His stuff is great because between his vector and his watercolor work, like he's kind of a one-man shop that can do like 5 different styles. And so that's why it has such a variety of my portfolios, because he was able to create all these different styles and I just made a move. So love that guy. His stuff is amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Like, it's great work. It looks super cool. I love the watercolor aspects to it as well. Yeah. We talked a good bit about how you kind of got into motion design and your journey there. I would love to learn a little bit more about your journey into art direction as well.
Okay, that's been fairly new. It's mostly because I've been working with, so Smartfish is the production company that does the explainer videos that I work for. They were starting to bring me on earlier, and right now I think I might be their main illustrator with our repeat clients. So when we have an established style guide, it's easy for me to go in and make changes instead of me creating the whole thing. But lately, I don't know, I've been accepting more projects where they bring me on so early that I'm in the concept phase. So I'm like, well, if I'm already doing the concept, I might as well do the art direction as well, because I know how to set this up. And then I usually will bring on another illustrator to execute it because I can illustrate, I'm just not as fast as a lot of my illustrator friends. And I really like collaborating with illustrators because they challenge me as a motion designer. If I'm doing all of it, I'm limiting myself. I'm thinking like 5 steps ahead, and I don't like working like that. I really like getting boards and then seeing them fresh. And yeah, maybe if I gave them some direction at the beginning, that's one thing, but I don't know, seeing how they set it up, it opens different doors in my head for me. So I really like actually collaborating more than taking on an entire project by myself. But I'm open to that,
I think that's an awesome way to keep yourself uncomfortable as well. Just you receive, like, you're not doing the full design stage. You're like bringing them in, they're doing the illustrations, you're receiving it, and you're going, cool. Like, essentially, the end puzzle, you receive the puzzle pieces. Now you get to put it together with the motion design side of things. And the puzzle just changes every time, basically. And that's awesome.
It does. Gosh, I love puzzles. I think most of us in motion design are puzzlers in some way. I
got one on my table right now.
Yeah, right? For me, I'm like a Sudoku fan too, and then I play solitaire every day, and so like I have my puzzle moments where I'm just like, I just need to give me something new, and I'll figure it out.
Do you frame your puzzles when you get off them, or are you like when the individual just goes, "We're done. I'm gonna just break it down, throw it in the box, look at it 3 years from now."
Yeah, or I'll trade with someone else who has a different puzzle. But I don't have a space for it. My apartment is covered in mostly of my own art, actually. But I have just stuff on all the walls, so I have no place to put a puzzle. My mom is a much bigger puzzler than me. I think she has those big mats that roll up when you finish them, and so she keeps those, but really no place to put it because she's also an artist, so she has a lot of art on her walls as well. I think we all just like the strategy of it, something to keep our minds going forward.
You have a dog as well.
I do.
What is your dog's name?
Oh, her name is Lady. We don't really know how old she is. She could be anywhere from 12 to 15. She's a one-eyed Beagle Chihuahua Corgi. We call her the Pirate Burrito. She's probably sleeping. I don't know where she is, but she's funny. She's a really funny little round dog, tube-shaped dog. Yeah,
that's hilarious. Okay, so the question here, we're pivoting. We're pivoting here. We're going to jump into it. All right, cool. We talked about getting into motion design. We talked about getting into art direction, taking on various projects in both areas. What is your favorite project you've ever worked on?
I don't know if it's like project. I want to say it was like roles that I enjoyed the most, and it's probably a tie between back when I was in that writer's room and because I liked working in comedy, and so it was really fun sitting in a room with comedians throwing jokes back and forth for feedback, and once they landed on something, they point at me and say, "Jen, we need a photoshopped picture of a donkey drinking a beer wearing a sombrero." I'm like, all right. And then I had to go on and make it, and I had to do like 5 or 6 of those within an hour. So that was like, I liked the unknown and being in that high energy and had to troubleshoot immediately. And I liked that. And I feel like that really pushed me. The other tie was I was creative lead at Craftsman Plus for Microsoft Solitaire, which I am a huge fangirl of and have been years before I even got that job. And I had to come up with like 6 new concepts every 3 weeks for a span of time. And it's just like, what else can you say about solitaire? Everyone knows what it is. It doesn't really change. So that was really fun because I was so into their app and I knew the new stuff that was coming out, and so it was like, okay, we can go from a nostalgic place. We can go from like, this is what's new place. We can go from a, teenage boy thing. We could go from like retired woman, so there was just grabbing like, who's the audience? What's this for? What kind of messaging? And working with a really legit copywriter. I really liked having those like brainstorm sessions with her and with the team. And that was really cool for me. And also I found sort of my love for social media ads, which I didn't think that would ever happen because I was doing so much corporate stuff. It was fun. I really liked these small turnarounds. And so that kind of sparked stuff after I left that job. I've been doing more advertising stuff for friends and family with small businesses. And yeah, I think those would be my 2. But there's so many different solitaire and so many different photos. It's like I can't really pick one. I guess actually my favorite Photoshop, because I'm a photo manipulator on the side. I do also stuff for my artist friend. I do a lot of work for him. My favorite Photoshop thing I've ever done was we need a picture of Johnny Depp covered in accessories. So it was over accessorized Johnny Depp. So he was wearing like 3 hats and 4 scarves and 2 bags and necklaces. And so that was probably one of my favorite ones that I've ever done. Because it was hilarious. It was stupid. I really liked it. So
that's really cool hearing about your different favorite projects. And one of the things I found really interesting in general is when you get a game like Solitaire that you have to get creative around, it really challenges your creativity a lot. I'm sure you went through that a ton with Solitaire, where it's like, okay, like you see it for like the 16th time, you're like, okay, it's the same game. It's pretty straightforward. It's a classic. Everyone already knows like what it is. How do we reintroduce it?
yeah,
Things like that. And I feel like from those situations, you walk away and you're just like super creative after that. Like you're almost MacGyvering everything at that point.
yeah. That's just there's a fun high when you reach that. And it's funny, I really actually like, okay, I hate bragging about this, but I've never really been in a situation where I've had complete white page syndrome. If you throw me into a thing, say like come up with 6 ideas, I will do that. I'll probably come up with 12. So I just, it's always churning. And so, but it feels like a fire hose. It's like you got to wait for the right moment and you're like, okay, go. And then it's just like, all the ideas. So I've been like keeping sketchbooks in every room just in case ideas come and stuff. And I think that's something that always been, my superpower. So probably the ADHD thing. I'm constantly being over inspired by things, overstimulated. So I have like a billion Pinterest boards for things that I can pull ideas from. But yeah, I do like that. It's funny when you say that, because I've been talking lately with friends about with motion design. I feel like, especially as a freelancer, I get a hero high from it, where I have someone who's just like, oh my God, our freelancer has COVID and we have a deadline. Can you jump in and finish this? And then I'm just like, yes, I can, with the flowing cape. And yeah, so like, I like being the backup for all my friends' studios, which is also just helped me financially when things get crazy. It's just nice having those projects kind of jump in. And I like those just as much as I do when I get in early and can come up with concepts. I like also being the finisher. I also really like sound design. So that just kind of works, being on the back end of everything. Is I get to wrap everything up in a nice little bow, collect a paycheck, and jump to the next thing. And also the diverse variety of stuff that I get as a freelancer. Yeah, it's so much fun. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of us out there too. Like when I say heroes high, everyone's just like, oh, I know what that is. Like that's the best when you can save someone, because everyone gets so dramatic. And I think also with motion design, I have a really good producer who says like, Jen, we're not operating on brains here. You need to take an extra day. Like no one's gonna die. If you think it's going to be better for the project to add a little sparkle, let us know. And so I'm like, okay, good to know. But yeah, because it's not life. And I feel like with your freelance, when you have your own business, there's this heightened level of I'm gonna screw it all up and it's all gonna burn down and I'm gonna be homeless. Because I get that a lot. It's totally irrational. But I think that's pretty common. But you have to remember, like, we're just making stuff move. We're having fun here. And unless you're working with a broadcast situation, deadlines are fairly, manageable. You can push things a little bit here and there. But, you just comes with experience. You know how to build out your schedule with plenty of padding. So you're able to work within those windows. Otherwise, you do that once, you don't do that again. I think I had a project where I was producing because I have so many friends that say like, well, you are a producer. I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't want to keep my hands on keyframes. Like I don't want to necessarily become a producer. I will produce small things, but I was mainly because I was on this project where I had hired all of my friends and didn't give myself any time between them delivering and me showing the client, and because I didn't know, and literally had someone say like, oh, I can't deliver today. I'll get it to you next week. What do you mean? This is the date of the client. I have a meeting with the client like today. Like, what? And they're like, yeah, like, sorry. I'm like, sorry, I'm paying you. And so, and I had 2 of them do that to me. And I was like, okay, I don't want to manage other people's time. I'm really good at my own project management and time management, but it's just really hard. The higher you get, you have to rely so much on other people. And I had such a bad experience back then that it wasn't until recently when I started working on more teams and realized, oh, there are, people that are intelligent and they can do it and they are supportive of you. But back then I was so turned off to producing. So now I'm like, okay, now I can see trying different roles here. And with the podcast that's the first thing I did actually when I was asked to take over was I knew I didn't want to do all of it by myself. And I knew I had friends that were involved already with the podcast just as listeners who I could pull in to help me, build it out. And also I'm not always the host. We kind of have our own themed months. So we all kind of figure out what we want to do, who we want to interview, and kind of like where we want to lead that. So it gives me a break. So I'm not doing it every single week. Which has been really great. And so we also have backup too. I'm like, oh my gosh, like something popped up. I can't edit the podcast. I have backup on who can jump in. And same with, our social posts and hosting it. So it's been amazing. I highly recommend having teams. Yeah, no, I think it was the smartest thing I ever did was pull in my team for that podcast. I don't know how Mark did it. Mark was doing it by himself for a while. He started with him and Liam were doing it for a while and then came back after COVID and it was just Mark. And I still have absolutely no idea how Mark Shinozio was like doing it by himself. I'm like, I have 6 people on my team and we're barely doing it. Like, that's crazy.
One of the things I love that you touched on was essentially the MVP syndrome, where it's like you're stepping at the last minute and you're saving the day. Mm-hmm. And then I think you also highlighted a really important example as to why like individuals in that situation should never feel ashamed of being the MVP. Specifically when it comes to like you said, you're asking for something to be turned in, you're finding out this person just basically goes, no, I can't get it to you. Sorry, good luck. I'll turn in a week later. And you're like left there going, what's going on? And it highlights something that I think a lot of people don't always pay attention to. And that is a really valuable aspect of being a team member is reliability. Yeah. And in many ways, I often feel like reliability, it really, like, if I have to choose between someone who is extremely good at what they do, but they're incredibly unreliable, and someone who is good at what they do, and they're extremely reliable, I'm always going to go with the reliable person because I'm like, at least I know number one, it's going to get turned in. Number two, it's going to get done. Number three, if they have issues, they'll alert me ahead of time so we work together to solve it.
Communication.
Exactly.
I have it literally written down on my thing. Soft skills pays the bills. That's where you get.
There you go.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I had just posted, I think 2-3 weeks ago, a video I made online that was, I've been calling it my soft skills reel, where it's like, it lives on my About Me page on my website, and it's on my LinkedIn pinned, but it's basically like an explainer video about me because I can do so many different things. You see my website, like there's so many things that I could be doing, but I get invited back because I have soft skills. So how do I show that online? How do any of us show that other than just word of mouth? But with COVID, I feel like before COVID, it was easier and I was getting a lot of projects just from word of mouth. But after COVID, something happened where I don't know if it's just, there's just so much stuff online now where it's hard to like find the right people, or everyone knows so many people who's the right fit. But I feel like with that shifting, there should be a shift in what we're posting, because some of us that were generalists, we don't get hired because we have a generalist reel, because almost anyone could do that kind of thing. But, if we're really reliable, if we know how to communicate, if clients like us, which is a big thing too, if we're client facing at all, we get hired more for that. So we should be posting that. And since I had posted that, we were talking before this call, I was worried. My financial situation was getting real scary. And after I posted this soft skills reel that had like a little bit of a taste of like my testimonials, because that's another thing. If you're not putting your testimonials on LinkedIn or your site, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Building credibility, especially if you're coming into this industry, that's the first thing you need to be working on. You need to be networking and you need to be building relationships. But that's another thing. It's like, how do you post that? Well, LinkedIn on your website, like there are ways to do it. So with this video, I have a little bit of that. I have a little bit of how I see myself more as a partner instead of a product. I'm not one rate. I'm not just my reel. I love working on different projects. I can work within most budgets. It just depends on complexity. So you need to get to know me to find out if you like me. And then I can, we could see what we can do. So after I posted that video, I started getting actual people reaching out to me for that. And I've signed contracts with 2 different agencies that I'm going to have ongoing work with all through next year, just from that video. And so it just got me so excited because I'm like, look, it's the proof. It's the proof I've been saying. And I think other people, like I know Ryan Summers says this too. Like he talks about like narrative reels. So, like injecting more of yourself in your reel is going to help you stand out. Otherwise, it's all the same tutorials or some version of the same ad that we've seen over and over and over again. How can you stand out? And so, yeah, I'm like, we'll do that. Let's normalize these soft skill reels and narrative, reels just to do something different, to find your people, because even though it's freelance, you want to keep going back to the same freelancer. Otherwise, it's like you have to retrain someone on your system or build another relationship. And it's been really hard the last 2 years to see so many motion designers struggle because all they talk about is say, oh my God, like I applied to 200 different jobs and no one's getting back to me. Like, why are you applying at all? Why aren't you talking to those people? Like, don't apply to them and assume they're going to get back to you. You want to like LinkedIn with them. You want to grab a digital coffee. You want to go to these, if you can go to meetups nearby, if you have local ones, or host your own or something. And there's so many different online meetups too. Like if you're a School of Motion alumni, there's a monthly meeting for that. And various other things. Like there's ways to get yourself out in the community. Because I feel like the most of the projects that I've gotten actually have been from friends that I've made in this community. So it's not just like you throw a resume at a job and assume something's going to happen. No, I haven't applied to a job 10 years, 20 years. So, like I feel like it's all been word of mouth or me putting stuff out there or me saying to my friends like, hey, if you need extra help, I got you, or me networking. So if I could do it, I feel like I know. And there's so many introverts too. It's definitely not something if you're a super shy person to do, but you have to get over that if you want to be successful, I think. Unless you are friends with a really great studio who's just going to hire you, no questions asked. You have to be okay and comfortable with, putting yourself out there a little bit. And it's scary. And you could do stuff that's not super revealing, but at least if you have a good personality, I think that will help you a lot. So for those who are not relying on that you really should really think about that. Other things you could do too. I don't know if they still do the lunch club thing. There used to be a thing, I saw it during COVID, where you could literally sign up to have a 15-minute conversation with a stranger. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen, but it's neat because it's about first impressions and how you could just meet different people. And also you can be making connections with people that are never thought or never heard of a motion designer before. And that was kind of a cool way to get out there. I've done speed dating events too, to just practice before a conference, doing, like you have 5 minutes to pitch yourself basically. So that was fun. And I did Toastmasters for a year too, because I say a lot of filler words still, but it's definitely gotten better since I did Toastmasters. I don't say and quite as much. And I said it again.
Hey, you're good. I probably said it like 20 times during this whole interview. You're fine.
Yeah, but no, there are definitely ways that you could be building up your confidence with your communication and your soft skills. And also, especially with this year being so hard and last year, there is no shame in taking a job that's not motion design related or motion design adjacent, because you're building your soft skills. That translates over every industry. So also leaning on your past. I know new motion designers are like, oh man, I used to be a film editor, and so it's not really the same. And I was like, no, lean on that. Or I used to work retail. Use that. You've been in front of difficult people before. That's a big skill. You need to be highlighting that. There's so many soft skills out there that I think people just don't realize how much that will help them in this industry to highlight it.
I definitely agree with that. When I was doing B2B sales, we always had a saying where you can sell the solution, but at the end of the day, what they're going to buy is the person.
Yeah.
So if you're fantastic at what you do, but you have no soft skills, you can't talk to someone or anything like that, number one, that person should definitely work on that. Because number two, that potential client is going to look at them and go, yeah, they hit the check marks, but I don't feel confident in them.
Right. Yeah. And oh man, if you have a sales background, gold, total gold. Or any kind of maybe psychology background, even better. Because you can talk to a client about their why, because that's such a big thing in this industry too. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because when I did the B2B sales, when I went through the process, like exploring why with various clients and so forth, I also came from a background where I was doing design thinking as well. And so one of the aspects of design thinking was that typically the problem posed is never actually the real problem. There's always something underneath that's a actual underlying problem, and that's what needs to be solved.
Yeah.
And just, I feel like that oftentimes isn't taken into account as well. Ryan actually brought up a good point in his interview, where specifically when they're making the sell to a hotel, about changing out pretty much the whole, first room you walk into, lobby, so forth, that they were looking for like just someone to come in and tell them this is what could work or something like that. But he was like, hey, I think you guys should do this. This is going to be like an actual solution to your real problem that I think is lying underneath, and working really well for him. But I agree with you. I definitely think, especially if you're freelancing, especially if you're by yourself, it is important to understand how to sell yourself, because that's what you're doing a lot of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I love what you said too with Ryan's example. It's being able to see those opportunities, and knowing your client. You have to research your client. You can't wait until the discovery call and have them do all of the work. You really have to do that yourself, because if you get to a point where you're at the end of the project and they throw a wrench in there because, we forgot about this one thing, you don't know where they're coming from. You can't give them a variety of different choices, because my thing too, that after a while I started realizing was a superpower, was when they had a question and it would have brought us way back into design, I knew how to solve that problem with changing some text or something. We didn't have to go back to design at all. I could do it with this. I could solve this with a sound effect, to punctuate something. I could, sell it with a color changer, minor things that they didn't know, because they didn't know how I worked, but I knew enough about their message and their audience that I knew how to solve that. And clients love when you can give them a free option, or definitely a smaller option, instead of having to go back stages, which is going to be a much bigger fee. And being able to show that also shows that you're on their team. You want to also give them the product under the budget. That's your goal as well. You're not out to, make as much money as you can off of them, because it's showing your honesty and you're being a team player. There's a lot of opportunities for that. So I actually like when those come up, because it's a great opportunity to build that trust.
And I think you also bring a really good point there as well. Just, ensuring the right people are in the right place for the best solutions. Because I have seen before where instead of putting the right person in the right place, let's just put someone here, they can figure it out. And then maybe they do figure it out, but the costs build up by putting the wrong person in the wrong place. And if you allow it to continue, it becomes astronomical, becomes a huge issue. The client gets upset about it. You're wondering why you're getting stuff back that's not correct, things like that.
Right.
It's a really interesting situation that I've seen various groups fall into, that I witnessed. And I'm like, this could have been probably solved by biting the bullet and just spending a little bit more time getting the right person in the right space instead of rushing something.
Right. Or maybe using AI instead of a real person, because it's hard. Especially, I've noticed some areas too where I've tried to step in to do copy with ChatGPT, where I'm like, a copywriter who would know this would be a better investment than me doing this, and probably give them a much better product. So it's knowing when you can do something for cheap and when you shouldn't. for sure. Yeah, I had a client who's now a repeat client, came to me a couple years ago, and they asked me about a project, and I gave them a quote, and they got a little sticker shocked, and so they went with someone else who did not do a good job, didn't give them at all what they wanted, and so they came back to me and made me an art director on all their projects. That was another way I got art director. They're like, "You're right. We'll pay what you want." And my rates aren't very high anyway. And I've since, it depends on, like, I work with different types of budgets, but for them, I was like, okay, like, now you see my value. Because, that other person, I think he had a slightly lower number and gave them a fraction of what I was offering. So, yeah,
And I applaud you for doing that, because I think it's very easy in those situations when that client comes back and, if they admit they're wrong and they're like, hey, opposite, we should know with you. I think it's easy in that situation to go, well, I told you so, haha, goodbye, there's the door. And
burn bridges. We all
exactly,
talk.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's important to always remember it's business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If they're coming back, it's because they have realized they didn't make the right choice. They're looking for the right solution. They believe you're now the right solution. The only caveat I have for that is when they come back to you and they bring the burdens that they have created with the other person with them in the form of a bad attitude, or like miss expectations, where it's like, hey, let's say it's a week deadline. He has spent 6 days with this other person who has pretty much fumbled the ball pretty heavily. They now come to you, they go, we have 1 day to figure it out. And if they let you do it, cool, great. But if they start like breathing down your neck about the whole entire time too, then it's like, look, I'm not the other person. I don't pay the cents for that. At the end of the day, I'm going to get you what you need, but you came to me because I want to do it right. And so I have to lay the foundation for us to be able to do it right.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing with setting boundaries early with clients, especially new clients. I've fallen into this a couple of times where I have a discovery call and they seem great and it sounds like the project's going to be super smooth. And then they ghost me for 3 weeks, or I can't get anyone signed up on their vendor account, or no one thought to send the Spanish version of the script to our VO artist and they already paid her. And there's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, now I know it's a lot about learning when you have to just unfortunately take it because you forgot to say at the beginning, oh yeah, I charge for my project files. That's a big one that a lot of newbies do. They fall into that pit all the time. And unfortunately, you just have to if they expected those project files and you didn't set a fee structure for it, you're going to just have to eat that money and give it to them because you don't want to burn a bridge, or maybe you do want to burn a bridge. And at that case, actually, I actually waive project file fees when I have a client that I don't want to work with again. Sometimes I'll use that just as a parting gift, and not work.
They probably don't even realize it too.
They don't even realize it, yeah. But I also do that with clients who I know I want to work with again, and it's going to be an ongoing thing. And it was, I think, I have one client where I say project files. There's a fee for the first project. I waive that fee for the rest of the projects, and they agree to that. So you could do something like that as well, because the reason with the project files is I've gotten to situations where clients have taken those project files and like threw a bomb in the middle of them and then came back to me and said, can you fix it? I'm like, well, no, you messed it up. Of course you don't know how it works. So, I also say, like, hey, looking forward, if this is like I'm working with a client right now where they're doing rebranding. I was like, okay, well, if you need to come back and change anything, it is easier. Like, I'll give you these project files, but it is easier to come back to me because for minor work, I just charge an archival fee if I have to just grab it off an old hard drive. That's the only fee I charge because I know where everything is, and it'll take me 5 minutes to like just find it and make a change. Other than sending it to someone who has never seen my files before or doesn't understand my color coding structure for everything. It's a lot easier. So being as communicative as possible at the beginning is it's huge. It's really big. And also putting things like deadline push fees and kill fees on projects, or archival fees. If they know the project's not going to come back for a while, then you give them a 30% markup of like what you would have made. So you get a little bit of something, because And same with deadline push fees. Yeah, you need to charge for that because if you're freelancing and you're working with multiple clients, that's going to affect your schedule. And I had a client where I didn't think I had to put that fee in, and that project kept getting pushed back and back and back, and it was like 2 months later. So that's on me. Sometimes you just have to be like, okay, lesson learned. Now I know. But yeah, and there's like so many other little fees too. But I think I learned most of that from Haley Akins actually is the making sure you have a lot of stuff like that at the beginning that you're very open about, and can give them an honest timeline for things as well, and securing, okay, well, you get this maybe flat rate for this project, but that only includes 2 rounds of revisions per thing. If we exceed that, it's this X. But you have to establish that first, because the next time when they come up to you and they have a change that's going to affect it's going to trigger one of those fees, then you have to be like, oh my God, like I would love to give you this change. But unfortunately, the contract says otherwise, and you signed the contract, and you make the contract the bad guy, because otherwise you're just fumbling, and then you get stuck in the weeds pretty fast. So having a secure contract, and I don't even have like a fancy I feel like most of my contracts are mostly just a well laid out email, but they did sign off on it, and definitely you want to make sure that you have one thread of communication, because if you're on the phone and you have them agree to something, you have to put that in that email thread as per our conversation, because you need to, in case you have to go back to it for any reason. Highly recommend doing that.
And I think that's a really good point as well, specifically when it comes to engaging through email threads and setting up those communication channels where I personally always like to have one point of contact. Sometimes it does end up, if it's a larger client, being multiple points of contact. But
yeah,
I personally flag any time that an account's like 5 contacts or more. I keep it on my radar, because I think at that point you have too many cooks in the kitchen. It becomes very easy to get things jumbled up. Next thing you know, you're working with a client who you really like, but halfway through the project, this new point of contact comes out of nowhere to ask for something. You like the client, and it's clear that this person was not aware of something that was very obvious in the contract, like project file fees, things like that. And so it's interesting those situations come up, because I feel like even though it's in the contract, it can lead to situations where you begin to weigh whether or not you enforce that part of the contract, or because you've worked with that client for a while now and they're typically a good client, and you're like, maybe I just don't look at it this time. But at the same time, then that builds up the expectation that moving forward, you're also just not upholding it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's up to you in the relationship with the client. Because, I don't charge my project fees for that first client that I still work with. That was how many years? 8 years, 9 years later. Because I know he's going to come back to me. Like, I know he's not giving it to anyone else. So, yeah, that's sort of like your own personal choice of that. But it does set a precedent. So, yeah, going forward, they're going to expect that. So you have to watch that. Or if you do that, discount it in your invoice and say, hey, I did it for this reason. And then the reasons can change. That's a good way of doing that. I actually discount most of my new clients. It's my little way of building trust early and also avoiding sticker shock later, because we all should be raising our rates just a little bit, just every year. It's inflation. We have to live. So instead of having that conversation of, hey, my rate is changing, you give them the original price of what it would have been when you up your rate, and then you discount it to your current rate. Mm-hmm. So then they know what that number is already. So it's a way to kind of like, they feel like they're getting a little something, but really you're just managing expectations for later.
I love it. Tips and tricks with Jen. Let's go.
It's my biggest one. Yeah.
All right. So let's pivot a little bit here. And I would love to know your spicy take for 2025. What do you think are going to be big changes that we'll see? It can be the design industry, it can be the motion design specifically industry, anything like that. What do you think the big changes are going to be?
I hope that I'm helping influence this decision between seeing more of those soft skills reels, because I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to do that. Like, do it. I want everybody to do that. So, it's fun. And also more collabs, because all this year I have been joining all kinds of really fun motion and sound design collabs, and I host my own as well, and it's been so much fun just grabbing in other people that I have met or haven't met in the industry to be like, hey, let's all do something together. And Mark Lawrence in the UK started his mid-century modern one called Design Before Motion. He started that at the beginning of the year, and he's doing that all year. And that inspired a few of us to kind of branch up and do our own thing as well. And so it's been really cool. And I have other friends that do it. School Motion always has a alumni collab that unfortunately I didn't get to participate in this year because things got crazy last minute. But just more things that we can all join in. It's a way to meet new motion designers and connect. It's also a way to talk with people that are just outside of motion, like the sound design community is fun. And I've been meeting different sound designers because of the collabs I've been in. So I think there's going to be a lot more collabs next year. It's just great for community building. And yeah, also, I don't know. I kind of like that I don't really have much of a plan for next year. I do a little bit for work, but like I don't know what conferences I'm going to go to yet. And I don't know. I'm not really, I know I'm definitely leaning into going to more of my meetups that are local. I'm definitely doing that and branching out with my local community, but I'm hoping that next year there's going to be even bigger events and more ones to pick from, because I think there's just special magic in these smaller, more intimate conferences, like your Dash Bashes, your Camp MoGraphs, your Making Midwest. Like they're a little smaller, more, and you can connect with more people on a different level than you would going to an Adobe Max or an NAB, that sort of thing. So I think more of those are going to start popping up now that we know how much we get from those.
All right, let's go. You heard it from Jen. It's going to be collabs. It's going to be more community building. Let's see it in 2025.
Celebrating those soft skills. Yeah.
Let's go. Awesome. And so for one last pivot here, for I Make Ugly Pancakes, you mentioned on your website that you're asked to do it. You finally did the push. What was the final push that was like, hey, I'm making the YouTube channel. Let's do this.
It was when I decided to start reaching out to more food product and events in the food and beverage space and the cannabis space too, because I'm in Colorado. I decided, you know what, I watch a lot of cooking videos, and I don't know, all the recipe videos that I was watching really they were all really long. And some of my favorite ones were like multiple recipes in one, and so they were kind of smaller. And I also am a gamer, and I was watching a different gaming channel that had this fun way of doing their videos where they had sort of like a photo puppet situation where they didn't have to be on camera, and it was more about the graphics and the animation. And I was like, well, I do graphics and animation and I cook. So, and I like neon lights. I am obsessed with light installations and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'm going to do my cooking channel with neon lights, a puppet that like kind of tells you a time-lapse recipe so they're fast, and just give the whole recipe up front, not like a crazy huge long story of my life for every recipe. I want this accessible, and I want it to be easy, because we all don't have time to be spending hours. There's a couple recipes where, like, I have a duck confit recipe. Like, yeah, it's like a 2-day thing. But for the most part, most of my stuff already has usually one element that's already pre-made, or it's pretty simple. You dump it all in one blender, dump it all in one pan. Like I try to make it as varied and accessible as possible, because I have ADHD, so my motivation to cook is all over the place. So I have recipes in place for those different types. So I just wanted to do my own thing. And then I also thought it would help my credibility for working with clients in that space as well. And it has. I connected recently with an event planner in Denver who does food and beverage festivals, because I missed a festival, and I was really sad because the roads were icy, and it was on my birthday. And I reached out to her because I noticed there wasn't a lot of motion in her social media posts and her emails and stuff. And So we had a conversation and we set up a barter exchange where I'm going to put motion on her posts, and she's going to hook me up with VIP passes to all of her festivals this next year. So I'm like super psyched for that, because I probably would have bought tickets for those anyway. So yeah, so you kind of never know. Motion is in every industry. So it's I love that I finally am connecting with a space that I love, which is the food and beverage industry. So I'm excited to see where that goes next year.
That is super awesome. And as well, for anyone watching, make sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. Again, it's I Make Ugly Pancakes. I make the healthy spinach banana oat muffins. So I challenge anyone who is watching this to also make that recipe as well. You'll find it in the description of the video. I loved it. I'm going to put a photo up. You'll see a photo somewhere around here of one of me.
It's great too if you have kids, because they're bright green. So if they like Hulk or the Grinch, I've been hearing them be called Hulk muffins. I think I usually call them Hulk muffins. But hey, it's, if it's the season for still wintry out, Grinch would be a good one too. Yeah.
That's awesome. You said you play video games. What are your favorite games?
All-time favorite game, Yoshi's Island. I've played it on every single Nintendo system that I've had. Currently, I got into Animal Crossing late. I did after the pandemic, but I do love that. I'm replaying Skyrim Elder Scrolls because I apparently originally killed the guy that's supposed to help me beat the game. I didn't know. So I'm redoing that. And I do still have Hogwarts Legacy still in the plastic, because I keep saying when I have time. So maybe during the holiday season, I'll have time to unwrap it and actually play it, because that one looks pretty fun. Obviously, I'm a solitaire person.
Obviously, yeah. We have to say solitaire. You worked on solitaire. We got to say it.
Yeah, I have 2 solitaire apps that I play every day. One for money, one for fun. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you play solitaire cash, right? That's
solitaire cash. Yeah. Yeah, I made $50 this morning playing solitaire.
Okay, let's go. First off, I do recommend playing Hogwarts Legacy when you get a chance. I really enjoyed that game. I don't think that game was super praised for some reason, but it was a really good game, and I loved it. I don't know why I didn't get a lot of praise.
I actually got it because I have a treadmill in my room, and so I had the YouTube 3-hour walkthrough of the game playing while I was on my treadmill, and it looked so great. I was like, this is great. I like, for some reason, video walkthroughs while on my treadmill is like my weird routine that I started. So that's why I got it. So I'm like, I kind of know the navigation of the game, but I want to actually play all of the, tournament stuff.
It's better than laying in bed and watching Let's Plays and stuff like that. I mean, I definitely understand that. I'm really bad about watching long plays to go to sleep, stuff like that. And I don't know. It helps me go to sleep, but I know it's a horrible time to be doing that.
I actually just joined a book club so I can read before bed, because I never really did that before, and I know the screens before bed is not great. I need sleep. So
yo, do you want to do a book trade? I recommend a book, you recommend a book? Let's do it. Okay, cool. You go first.
Well, okay.
I go first. You go first. You can think about it.
Yeah, you go first. There's so many.
Okay, perfect. All right. So one of my designers on my team turned me on to a book called Ikigai, and I recommend it. It's fantastic. I'm gonna go grab it. You might see me in sweatpants, but don't judge.
I know what Ikigai is. I didn't know there was a book though on it. Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so it's super cool. Maybe I'll flip the video. But it talks about finding purpose in your work, to where work doesn't become like a huge burden for you. It becomes more of a purpose.
Yeah. Just funny because the book that I'm recommending is very similar.
Okay, let's go. And I love it. It's like I read it over the course of 3 days, taking about 3 hours per day. So it's a very short read. Has exercises in the back in regard to rebalancing, just kind of like your spirit, things like that, grounding yourself. And it's just one of those books where like I don't feel like it was just made to be like a self-help book for the sake of being a self-help book. I feel like it really had strong takeaways for me in regard to, again, just finding purpose in life, things like that. All right, I gotta know though, what is your book recommendation?
The Good Enough Job by Simone Stolzoff. It was recommended to me by my friend Rachel, and it's basically when you're an artist, you kind of make that part of who you are. Like that's your identifier, your personality is you're an artist. So when you work on jobs that are creative, it's really hard for you to separate yourself from them, because those start to become part of who you are. And if you're not working or if you're not doing stuff, you start to sort of feel like you're not good enough. And so this book is really good about helping you separate, one, what are your priorities? What would make you happy? Because we have a lot of these outward influences saying, oh, you need to make this amount of money to be happy. You need to have all of these investments to make you happy. You need to get married and have kids to make you happy. And with your work and everything, I don't know, it's really hard to separate yourself from who you are with what you do. And so that book is fantastic for that. But I'm really excited. I'm going to pick up Ikigai. I just got a library card. So I'm like, I want physical books, but I don't want to keep buying them. So I need to go to the library. So that's definitely on my list. I'm excited for that. But yeah, it's good.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, Good Enough Job. That one it's really good. I feel like I'm a pusher. I've pushed it on a few people, but they've all said that like it was a good thing and they really enjoyed it. So.
Hey, that's the point. This is the point of recommendations, right? If we didn't do that, then there would never be a recommendation section for anything. So That's awesome. Okay, cool. So I need to pick that up. I'm going to order it on Amazon now. That's exactly what I want to be doing after this call.
The audiobook is really good too. I certain books I have on audio, that one had a really good narrator too, for anyone that wants an option.
I can't do audiobooks anymore. I used to be able to do
be driving. I have to be driving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like doing design or I'm playing a game, I listen to an audiobook, I'm like, I got to repeat the whole chapter again. I just forgot half of it.
Yeah, I do that too. If I'm in an environment where there's a lot of stuff going on too, I'm just like, I'm focused on too many things. I can't. But that's why I like reading before bed, because I'm like, everything is shut off. And lately I've been getting into fiction for the first time in a really long time. And because before, I don't know what it was. I just never read fiction. It was all nonfiction. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm letting myself get pulled into the story a little bit. I'm starting to think about what this person looks like. When you're reading a self-help book, you don't really do that. So it's really easy to read several pages and you're like, oh, I didn't retain anything. So you have to go back.
All right, everybody. That was Jen Van Horn, again, a seasoned motion designer and freelance art director, also a mentor and a creative director, host, and editor for the Monday Meeting podcast, along with running her own cooking YouTube channel called I Make Ugly Pancakes. So make sure to go check that out. Jen, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you so much, Grant. This was so much fun. I appreciate it.